Good evening. Thank you, everyone. I'm thrilled to see such an energetic audience. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, July 19 at 6:30 p.m. Again, it's good to see everyone. And I want to also let you know there are hearing devices available if someone needs it. I think we have one or two more. So if someone needs a hearing device, just raise your hand and we'll let someone know that and they'll get it to you. There you go. You see that, Derek? Very good. Thank you. Do we have any more, Derek? Yes, sir. There's one more in the back. Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, tonight our invocation will be given by the Reverend Eric Bartell, the minister at First Presbyterian Church in Eden, North Carolina. Following that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll ask our county manager if he will lead us in that Pledge of Allegiance. So after the invocation, just please remain standing for our pledge. Pastor Bartell? Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Everyone, please join me in prayer. Most High and all-loving God, before we begin tonight's work, we pause to give you thanks. You are the source of life and love, hope and peace. We recognize your care for every square inch of creation, and we pray that all of us, especially these your servants, would appreciate what you have provided of us. This good land is our heritage. Make all of us mindful of your generosity and consistently guide us to do your will and not our own. Please bless those who hold office in this county of Rockingham, and please help this commissioner's court to listen, first of all, to you, to the whole community, and to one another. Help them also to speak, especially to amplify the voices of those in our community who are most vulnerable and rarely heard. We lift up each agenda item and each county department and employee represented here tonight. We pray that tonight's agenda would follow your agenda and that we live as a united and peaceful community. Righteous God, you who rule the nations, guard our brave men and women who risk themselves in battle for our country. Protect our law enforcement and criminal justice system workers. Father, we pray over our county educators, from the principals down to the teachers and staff. We pray for those facing addiction and mental health challenges. Almighty God, we seek your life-giving spirit to move the hearts of all of us so that the barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease so that all our divisions are healed. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Sheltering God, bless all of us who call Rockingham County home, and help us to join you in making our home a healthy and flourishing home for all. Grant all of us here tonight everything that we need, most of all, a servant's heart, that this evening's proceedings will fulfill their important role in making our county a better home for all of us. All truth is your truth, mighty Father, and people who come to know you and your will in many ways, Lord, we pray. I offer this prayer in the way and the name of your Son, Jesus. And all people said amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you being here tonight. Mr. Manager.
Turn your attention to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. As you know, we work from a approved agenda, and tonight there is an agenda before us. Gentlemen, are there any changes that need to be made?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Travis.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve the agenda, but I'd like to change item 7, switch it with item 8. So let 8 come before 7.
Very good.
And I also like to add new business to consider approval of the presented plan and timeline for disengagement from the Cardinal Innovation Healthcare and engagement with Sand Hills Center.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Second.
Very favor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I appreciate that. We do have an approved agenda. And I apologize, I neglected to mention that Commissioner Berger would not be able to be here tonight. He had a prior engagement and sends his regrets. With that, the next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. As you know, items on the consent agenda are non-controversial items. However, if anyone has questions about these items, please contact Lance Metzler, the county manager. Mr. Metzler will be glad to fill you in on any details. With that, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda as printed.
Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. The consent agenda is passed. And that takes us to public comment, and we've had no one sign up for public comment tonight. So that being said, that takes us to item 8, which is now 7, and it'll be John Mendenhall, city manager from the city of Eden. Mr. Mendenhall?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the county commissioners, would like to turn your attention to this agenda item. The city has been working with the county on this industrial parcel on New Street, and we would like to study it if it's the county's pleasure. The city would like to study it, see what our options are for recreational use, to vet those items, and to come back in a joint format to come back to you all with a proposal, a study report, if you will, of what options are there and what options could be for the usable portion of that property. What we don't want to do is take away anything from industrial development or the sale of that property. This would be to augment that, so we'd keep all of our options available, but try to get some sort of beneficial public use for that property in the areas that are not developable for industrial purposes.
Very good. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Mr. Mendenhall? Is this request have any funds required?
No, sir. The city has studied it at the city's cost.
Very good.
I make a motion to approve it.
Gentlemen, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? You have a question?
I just want to make a comment. John, I appreciate you coming. You ain't been here before, I don't think. I ain't never seen you. But I welcome you to Rockingham County, and I'm glad you're a City of Eden manager, and I hope we can work good together. We worked good in the past, so hopefully we can continue down that same road. But
Yes, sir.
welcome to Rockingham County.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Travis. So the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Very good. Thank you, John. Study away.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. That being said, that takes us to our public hearing item regarding the UDO. Before I ask Ms. Spencer to come up, I'm going to ask Commissioner Pirtle, if he will, to give us a brief introduction on this item. Commissioner Pirtle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I didn't say that this entire process concerning our Unified Development Ordinance has been somewhat of a challenging task. We started this project along with the land use plan back in mid-2018. And although the land use plan is complete, it simply provides us with a vision for our growth in the county. The UDO, as it continues to evolve, once it's completed, it will provide guidance on how do we get there. So why are we doing it now? The new Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes consolidates current city and county statutes for development regulations into a single unified chapter. Chapter 160D is now in effect, but local regulations in a single unified chapter. All city and county zoning, subdivisions, and other development regulations, including the Uniform Development Ordinance, will need to be updated by January 1st, 2021. And keep in mind, this includes our Unified Development Ordinance. Cities and counties that have zoning ordinance must have their comprehensive land plan updated by January 1st, 2022. Our land use plan, Rockingham Vision Plan 2040, was adopted May 17th. In addition to the challenging risks, the committee worked through a pandemic, a change of consultants, and staffing. And without a doubt, there were some adjustments to this document. The board feels that needs to be made prior to adoption. Some have already been made prior to this meeting, and I think those have been passed out to the audience. We think that we need to hear more from our citizens. That's why we've asked our county manager to direct our webmaster to make available on the Rockingham County website a link to citizens that may access questions or concerns, comments, or even make recommendations or suggestions about the UDO. We've asked him to ensure that the most up-to-date proposal on our UDO is on the website and available for public viewing. And on a separate note, I know that all of us have fielded a lot of questions over the last week, and I can share with you 90% of mine was around the portion of the new UDO that's centered around the firearms. And I can just share with you that in all my conversations, independent with all these members of the Board of Commissioners, at no time did anyone ever in any fashion make any statement that would in any way want anybody to be impeded, any citizen to be impeded in their opportunity to get a concealed weapon permit, hunt on their own land, or recreational shooting. As you may recall, this board has always been a supporter of Ruger and Remington, and we unanimously passed a resolution declaring Rockingham County a Second Amendment constitutional rights protection county, and I think that was in February of 2020. So with that, Mr. Chairman, just a brief history to let the folks out there know that this has not just been something that's happened over the last couple of months. This is something that we first started having discussions with back in mid-2018. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pirtle. I appreciate that. With that introduction, I'm going to ask Lynn Cochran, who is serving as our planning director now. And we have made some amendment suggestions now. I think most people have those in hand. If you don't have a copy of those, please raise your hand, and we'll provide you with a copy of those. And while he's passing those out, these are amendments that have come about as we've looked at the document, taken comments from people over the last several days. And so we are trying to be responsive to the community's needs and requests. I've asked Lynn to go over these and to read these out for us tonight so that everyone will have a clear understanding of the changes that we've already agreed to make to this document. And these will be incorporated when we vote on this. The intention tonight is that this will not come to a vote tonight. The intention is that we will continue this hearing and bring it to a vote at our August 16th meeting, and that will be discussed later in a motion. Lynn, if you're ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Very good. Thank you for
Commissioner
being
Hall.
here.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for Mr. Pirtle for that review. That I think is very important for that to be said. Hopefully, once I go through this, I'm not going to read every word of each one of these. Everybody will be resting a little bit easier by the end of the evening. First of all, thank you all for coming out. I love seeing this sort of input, and thanks of all. And second of all, thanks for letting me speak. We've proposed several amendments already.
Hey, Lynn, hold on.
Yeah.
Can the people in the back hear what Lynn's saying? Okay.
Our folks have done a really good job of improving the acoustics, so good. I'm glad. If you can't at any point, just let me know, okay? So I'm just going to present these amendments because I know we have a lot of speakers. The first amendment's pretty simple. It's just a little bit of adjustment to the design standards for commercial buildings, just taking out some language that seemed a little bit too regulatory for the county at the request of more than one person. And the second one is the big one I think that everyone's here for tonight. And it is no coincidence that I put this as Amendment 2 because the Second Amendment to the Constitution says the text for the firing range language is going to be removed from the ordinance. Historically, there have only been 3 permits that Planning and Zoning issues regarding anything having to do with firearms. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I wanted to make sure everyone sees this. It's in your handout packet. All of that text is going to be removed, and the definition is going to be updated to just shooting range in the back section, the appendix of the new UDO. These three uses are the only thing that the UDO sets forth guidelines for. A turkey shoot, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, a skeet trap and sporting range, and high-impact shooting range. And that mostly applies to perhaps an institutional use for training police and sheriff's deputies, or a high-use sporting range. These guidelines are exactly the same as the current ordinance that we have in place. There's been no changes in the language, no changes in the regulations. So these have already been in place now for a minimum of 10 years. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Before we leave that, if we will, Lynn, so this will not impede on a private individual shooting their gun on their own property, either for hunting or for recreation?
Absolutely not. And additionally, in an instance, say, where someone is an instructor for concealed carry permit training, we have had that come in front of us before. That is a very simple one-time $40 home occupation permit.
And that's
someone
one
can acquire. One time forever.
So it's not a per use, per occasion, per year, it's one time period?
And there are no guidelines associated with it. It is simply an occupation permit that says, I'm a licensed firearm instructor for concealed carry. Here's what I'm going to do on my property. Permit, you're good forever. There are no guideline standards, nothing like that. And we've permitted several folks who do that sort of training. And if, when the time comes, if I can answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
Very good, thank you.
Again, I'm not going to read everything to you. This is to correct the definition of the shooting range that is currently missing in the text of the UDO. It got shuffled and omitted along with the firing range language, so we've cleaned that up and straightened it out. We're also taking out some of the language that no longer really applies or isn't necessary to consider,
That's just a commentary, wasn't it?
essentially.
Yeah, okay.
Amendment 4, I'm not going to go read out loud. As you can see, it's several pages long. The voluntary farmland preservation ordinance text was omitted accidentally from the draft that got posted online. It will be included in the final text version of this, and nothing is changing in the Voluntary Farmland Preservation Act as of now. The language is still exactly the same as the current version. This will just be a change of where it's located in the ordinance. I only have two more. This one hopefully will put some others at ease about nursery and landscape businesses. We went through this and looked at it closely. The vast majority of these requirements are going to be removed. Anything you see highlighted and struck through is going away. The only things that we're retaining for nursery and landscape business is the site must have a 100-foot setback on a state-maintained road, minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet, and that mulch and gravel piles be located outside of the setbacks. Those will be the only three requirements that are attached to any permit for a nursery landscaping business in the appropriate zoning district.
If I may, can you comment on the 100-foot frontal?
The 100-foot comes from the current ordinance. That is the current rule for any lot, residential or almost otherwise, that fronts a state road. 100 feet is the minimum standard at this point. So it's essentially carrying over the minimum standard from the old ordinance to the new ordinance.
Thank you.
And lastly, these are just little fixes to fire, sheriff, and emergency services development standards. The sign was determined to be a bit too small. Plus, there are regulations regarding the signs permitted in the office, institutional, commercial, and industrial districts located elsewhere in the ordinance that apply here. And the same is true for the greenhouse, commercial greenhouse rules that we are revising the sign rules for that too and removing that. With that, the rest of it is simply notations as to where this is going to be found in the ordinance. This is a first pass at, as you mentioned, edits and text amendments, and there will be much more that happens over the next 30 days. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
If not, thank you, Lynn. We appreciate that. I'm going to invite Carrie Spencer. She was instrumental in helping to develop this, to give us a little more history and a little more background as we move forward.
Hello, good evening. It's good to be here again. Reese covered the majority of it, the need for the ordinance to be revised for 160D. Another issue with the older ordinance was that it really was in need of organizational updates and structure that would make it easier to use. And that was is quite a task, and I feel like we did get that accomplished. I just want to thank you for making this available to the public and for taking the time to give it the time that it needs, this very important document, and not rushing in lieu of the deadlines and the unusual circumstances that we've had in the last year. So I've really enjoyed working on it. My suggestion next would be really, and I talked to Lynn about this, and I think, Charlie, you and I talked about it, to make sure and compare all of those supplemental regulations with what is in the current UDO, to be sure that they're still in line with what we've been accustomed to for the last 10 years.
I've got a question for you. What are the benefits that we're going to see from adopting this? You know, we're talking about some of the issues and problems tonight, but also discuss some of the positives from adopting this, if you would.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest ones is ease of finding information in this ordinance. It's been, there's a navigation tool that's available with the ordinance now so that you can navigate through it online very easily. If you're a developer and want to know about rezoning, it's very easy to find out what our regulations are. Same thing with site plan approval, subdivision approval. We also have made some changes in the zoning districts to better encourage development in line with our land use plan and in line with the natural lay of the land. That was something that was that's a real asset to this ordinance, that a developer can now more easily and flexibly develop with the natural lay of the land.
Let me ask you, with
And maybe,
small
I don't know if
business.
that's what you meant, Charlie, but if
Yeah,
you want.
some of that as well, but I also want you to expand. I know one of the things that we had discussed was small business, small entrepreneurs
Yeah.
wanting to start a business
Yeah.
or grow their business, and I'd like you to address the intent and some of the things about that.
Yeah, one of the things is the commercial standards being such that a new entrepreneurial business can establish themselves without a huge investment, which is a big issue. It's, when you say small business, I think there's a lot of new emerging land uses, trends that we never thought of before, kind of what we call emerging land uses. Everything from short-term rentals to vaping lounges. Anyway, there've been, over the years, a new creative idea has created to be successful as a small business. And this ordinance is more flexible in that regard. And it allows us to interpret those types of uses.
Will some people be able to, by right, use their property without having to come and get a special use permit?
Yes,
before
a lot of
planning?
the, I see what you're, a lot of the, we went through the entire permitted use table, and it was one of the things I did recently, and changed a lot of things from requiring special use permit public hearings to be allowed by right or to be allowed with standards, just specific standards, such as the landscaping business. But yes, there were a lot of uses that required onerous and expensive public hearings that really, as long as the standards are in the ordinance, those hearings weren't necessary.
Very good, thank you. Gentlemen, any questions? Very good, thank you, Carrie, I appreciate that.
Sure.
And with that, I would like to recognize Charles Rakestraw. He's been a member on this committee that has looked at this. Charles?
Chairman Hall and Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. I'll try to be brief. As a member of the advisory board, which included Gene Robertson, Bruce Noy, Matt Smith, Will Flint, we worked with Kerry over the last couple of years. So I'll get right to it. What are we doing and why are we replacing the UDO? Two reasons. Number one, as Reese referred to, is the 160D, but here's the main reason I believe. The old UDO, or I'll call it the current one, as it is written, is antiquated. It's old. It doesn't fit Rockingham County's needs. Now, Lee Cockrum, the county, you guys have done a wonderful job in recruiting industry. You got Pella Window, Purina Dog Food, Ontext, and I could go on. But one of the missing links here in Rockingham County is housing, new home developments. So I want to be brutally straightforward with you. Our current UDO is holding our county back as far as residential growth. In particular, where this county has invested so much in water, sewer infrastructure. Now, our mindset in going into this, first, we did not want this to be cookie cutter. Understanding that we're not Guilford County, we're not Forsyth or Wake County. We were looking at ways to keep our youth here. As we know, many of our youth are leaving in droves. While other counties are putting the brakes on growth, we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. We're wanting Rockingham County to grow. All that being said, we wanted to keep the UDO as simple as possible. Where possible, we referenced 160D. We took a lot of the legalese out. The second thing is we wanted the UDO to complement the recently approved land use plan. The land use plan gives us guidance to what the county is going to look like, where the parks are going to be, where residential is going to be, commercial. We wanted it, again, to complement the land use plan. The third thing, we wanted the UDO to encourage growth, to be friendly towards developers and builders. Specifically, rather than requiring certain lot size, now it's density average. So what does this do? This gives flexibility to builders and developers. The dimensional table has been updated. We have friendlier setbacks, lot widths, again, giving flexibility to the developers. Again, all of this was going to help us take advantage of our water and sewer investment. Now, the UDO covers a lot of ground. If you look at the individual uses, many are similar in the proposed UDO as the old one. But over the last couple of years, we've gone through it. We've taken out a lot of the language. So as I get towards closing, I can't emphasize enough, this will not be the gospel. This is not perfect. It will be a living document. There will be times where we find something that needs tweaking. So over the last few days, I've gotten some calls, emails with questions, good questions. And tonight, part of the process is the public hearing, and I want to commend Chairman Hall for encouraging the feedback, the questions. And in closing, the proposed UDO will be a tremendous improvement compared to what we have now. It's going to be a great economic tool to help our county grow. Chairman Hall, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Rakestraw, appreciate you being here tonight. With that, we're going to move ahead, unless you guys have any questions. We're going to move ahead to the public hearing, and I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. And signed up to speak tonight are Sheriff Sam Page.
Do you want him to read the procedures?
Wait, Sheriff, if you would, let me ask our county attorney to go over the guidelines for the public hearing tonight for those speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Procedures for the public hearing are as such. All those desiring to speak at a public hearing will register on the sheet located at the rear entrance of the commissioner's room. The chairman may establish time limits for speakers. As such, a limit of 3 minutes per speaker shall be imposed. If so desired, a speaker may yield their time to another with a maximum time of 6 minutes. Speakers will be called in the order in which they are registered unless otherwise directed by the chair. Each person shall state their name and address for the record prior to their remarks. The speaker shall address only the issue currently being heard. Please be mindful of what is presented to the board in an effort to eliminate any repetitive statements. All speakers will be heard before any rebuttals are recognized. All comments shall be addressed to the board. Appropriate, polite conduct is expected. Anyone indulging in personal attacks, shouting, or other disruptive behavior will forfeit their right to speak and, if necessary, asked to leave the meeting. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. We appreciate it. We will be using the 3-minute timer tonight due to the large amount of folks lined up to speak. Sheriff?
I'm Sheriff Sam Page, Sheriff of Rockingham County. I live at 645 South Madison Street, Eden, North Carolina. Mr. Chair, Board of Commissioners, recently I became aware of a UDO, a Unified Development Ordinance, that could be adopted tonight, including in this document would be ordinances that cover firing ranges, shooting ranges, turkey shoot operations. After reviewing these amendments and the current ordinances, I had the opportunity to speak to Board Chairman Hall and our county manager to express my concerns as your elected sheriff regarding these proposed amendments and enforcement. In February 2020, the Rockingham County Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution to declare Rockingham County a Second Amendment constitutional rights protection county, and that you would respect and defend the Second Amendment rights of Rockingham County citizens. I proudly display this most important resolution in the prominent location for all who pass through our hallways at the Sheriff's Office to see and read, and to let our staff and citizens know where Rockingham County government stands on the Second Amendment. In Rockingham County, we currently have 9,668 law-abiding citizens who possess a permit to carry a concealed handgun when they choose to do so. By the end of the year, our goal is to reach 10,000 concealed carry handgun permits. Just last year, the Sheriff's Office issued 5,518 handgun purchase permits to law-abiding citizens. The Second Amendment guarantees the right to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. In this day and time in America, we see efforts regularly by some who choose to attack our constitutional protections afforded every citizen. There is no question where I stand on the Second Amendment and the rights of all law-abiding citizens to lawfully possess firearms for the protections of one's home, one's family, or one's individual personal protection on or off their personal property in accordance with the law. One of the most asked questions that I hear around Rockingham County when gun ownership comes up is, where can I go shoot? Where can I go shoot? That tells me that there are some residents of Rockingham County who feel that they do not have an adequate or suitable place to shoot their firearms. One of the other public concerns that I hear is in the future with boards is the possibility of, and you've addressed this, with county ordinances that could restrict one's right to shoot a firearm on one's personal property. To the board and to the public, and as your sheriff, I would personally oppose any ordinance in the future that would infringe upon one's right to exercise their Second Amendment protections under the U.S. Constitution. I would personally like to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing our citizens to be heard tonight on the proposed UDO and demonstrating your commitment to ensure that our citizens' constitutional rights are protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. John Norwood.
Cindy, get you an updated one.
Address, please.
She got you an updated resolution.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners. James John Norwood. I live at 7798 NC Highway 700 in Ruffin, North Carolina. I am a family farmer. We own over 300 acres ourselves, and family and friends, we've got over 1,000 acres in Rockingham County. I'd like to defer the rest of my time to Mark Davis.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Davis. Please state your name and address.
Thank you, sir. Mark Davis, 2426 Narrow Gauge Road in Reidsville. First of all, thank you, Commissioners and the Planning Board, for your work. It's hard, it's tedious, and we all come from different viewpoints. So tonight, I am here as a farmer, a landowner, a former lender, a grassroots advocate, as well as on behalf of my family and my grandchildren and my friends. So with that, I want to give you just a quick background of myself so that you know my qualifications. Catherine and I moved here back in 1984, so we've been here a while. We have 21 years with Farm Credit, 16 of that here in Reidsville. Since then, I have now employed with the North Carolina State Grange, which is a true grassroots advocacy with rural and agricultural interest in mind. As a landowner in Rockingham County, we've owned land in Williamsburg as well as Simpsonville and most currently Reidsville Township. Currently, we own approximately 100 acres off of Narrow Gauge Road or on Narrow Gauge Road, where we raise Angus cattle with my son, who has just recently moved back, as well as we house the Rolling Ridge Riding, which is a therapeutic riding center for the handicapped kids here in Rockingham County and surrounding areas. So with that said, let's drink from a fire hose. And I do have the notes here for you that we can give to you a little bit later on with some suggestions. Starting with page number 10, my question is, and we're going to take a circle back around on this one to quote those famous words. Who and what are the criteria used? Again, we'll circle back on those. As before mentioned, thank you for recognizing farms as bona fide exemptions. And we'll look at those a little bit more later. The other thing that we want to look at is the consistency. Section 10.8, page number 11, shows that the most stringent regulation will govern. However, in Section 2, or Article 2, Division 1, Section 21, 2.3, page 15, the director is going to give a permit regardless of the restriction covenants. That's in direct conflict with some of your other thoughts and regulations. So we need to look at that. The next two big changes deal with the board compositions. And really what I would like to look at there is maybe move from a 7 plus 3 alternates to maybe a 9. And in that have the qualifications that at least 3 of those positions, if we move to a 9, be a farm owner or a tract owner with 25 acres or more. And they must have owned that land for at least 5 years. And that 5-year residency also needs to be in our regular planning board members. And we need that for both the planning board composition as well as the Board of Adjustments. When we look at the technical review committee, and now I'm down to page 18, and we've only got about 230 yet to go. The technical review committee, we need to add one member to that, and that being the Ag Advisory Committee. We need one of those members there because the property owners, large property owners, which, you know, we're trying to keep the rural nature of the county, needs to be added. So that needs to be going into there. And I might have to skip some things. When we look at Article number 3, Division 35, Section 33, 2.G2C, that is the criteria for decision-making on who gets an exemption and who doesn't. We need to look strongly at that applicant's financial goals. Myself and John already have mentioned we own significant land. That is our investment. That is our 401k. So we need to take those into strong consideration to any deliberations there. Thank you for putting in the ag, voluntary ag district. That was well needed. And we do have some suggestions there as well, and I will defer those back on over to the planning board for their look there. One thing that I do want to add is in our lot subdivisions right now, currently we have 5 for a 10-year period. We need to look at that a little bit. So if I'm gifting children, grandchildren, immediate family a deed, I'm limited to 5. So if we have 6, 7, 8 grandchildren come along, they're going to have to wait 10 years before we can give them something. So, and there again, we can tie that to, quote unquote, a gift deed rather than a sale. So that is good there. There again, there's some language that we need to look at in the agritourism section. It looks like it may be a little conflict there, so we need to look at those. And the other thing on the agritourism, maybe look at from 4 events per month to 12 days. because we may be looking at a wedding, and it may be a wedding one day and a family reunion the next day, and that could happen there. Seeing that my time is up, I do want to thank you for your work, your time, your attention, and there again, I do have the notes if y'all would like those.
Please pass those to our county manager if you would. We would really appreciate that. And we will take these and present them to the planning board and to the committee.
There you go. And again, thank you very much, because what you do will affect the landowners in Rockingham County. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And we have next Mr. Don Powell. Please state your name and address.
Don Powell, 636 King Street in Reedsville.
Is anyone gifting you their time?
Yes, Miss Diane Parnell.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the time that you've put into this. I know that it is a daunting task. This is a big section to have to deal with. And recently I was in Dallas, Texas in a leadership program, and the former President George Bush said this. He said, the decisions we make today may never know their full consequences for years to come. And so I would tell you that your decisions on this may not be known until years to come, when you may not be on this board. I would like to tell the audience that after reading the range stuff, I contacted the commissioners and they changed it. After we discussed the ramifications of stuff that could have been detrimental to the welfare of citizens in Rockingham County, that was changed. There's also some other revisions here that's been changed since last Thursday. I would like to say that I hear what has been said here tonight, that this is for the people of Rockingham County and it's good for the county. I would say that I don't think the range stuff was very good for the county. And I understand that this has been under review, or you've been working on this for about 18 months. And I don't know who put that in there, but I would like to say that it made it, I think it made it through the planning board, and it made it to within 4 days of potentially a vote here. And the reason I say that is because when we have a document that's this large, it's easy to have things inserted that you really don't know what the ramifications of it will be, or maybe you don't know what it is in there because you can't digest it all at one time. So I would encourage you, as you have said you're going to do, you're going to put your vote off till August the 16th, and I applaud you for that, because I'm, as anybody else in this room, as a businessman, and I'm a general contractor, I'm interested in the commercial development, the planning and zoning. But as a citizen of Rockingham County, I'm also interested in the rights that I have on my own property. And we've always been that way in this county. And so whoever drafted some portions of this, I don't believe was very familiar with the ideology of our county nor the culture in this county. And so I'm glad to see that you are taking the time to change that. And I think you're going to find some other stuff that's going to have to be done. I do realize, gentlemen, that you cannot anticipate every problem that may come out of this. There's no way you can do that. But you can change the things that are obvious before you vote on it easier than you can change them after it's voted into as an ordinance, because there is a process by which you have to do that, as you well know. And once again, I'd like to say to the people in the audience, I want you to understand that once, you know, the firing range become an issue, that the county commissioners were very interested in changing that and making that right for the people of the county. So in going forward, there again, I'd like to commend you again on what you've done, but realize that this will affect in some way every part of a citizen's life in Rockingham County each time they decide to do something with their property. And the problem with these things is, while I know what your intentions are, and I know that you have the very best intentions for Rockingham County, your intentions won't be in planning and zoning 2 or 3 years from now when somebody comes in to get a permit. It'll be subject to their interpretation of what your intentions were or what the document reads as. And so it's very important that when this stuff is voted in as an ordinance, as law in Rockingham County, that it be clear, crystal clear, as it can. I know we live in a time when there's nothing really black and white anymore. It's all gray. You know, the truth seems to be an abstract concept, so to speak, and in the world we live in. But as far as these documents, we have the opportunity and the people employed in the county to make sure that we get the wording right so that there is little as possible room for interpretation, and it's strictly on what the words are written here. So as you go forward, please, 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 just take the time to look this over and make the changes necessary so that you don't spend the next 2 or 3 years trying to amend these things. I realize you're up against a deadline, and there again, I commend you for taking issue with that and pushing this off till August the 16th. Thank you for all your hard work and your dedication to the county.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Appreciate your comments. And next on our list is Mr. Doug Isley.
I don't think he's here, is he?
He's not here. Okay, very good. Jeremy Kahn. Please give us your name and address, sir, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Jeremy Kahn, 520 Baines Road, Reedsville, North Carolina, 27320. Good evening, members of the board, staff, fellow citizens, especially fellow citizens. Let me start by saying that I'm pleased that the vote on the UDO has been postponed and that changes are being made that fixed some of the untenable regulations. However, I'm here to address the board and especially the citizens of Rockingham County and suggest that the concept of zoning and planning be reassessed and reimagined in a way that closer represents freedom, property rights, and American ideals. As I was reviewing the proposed ordinance last week, I was struck by the overbearing nature of some of the document. Not only were there items that were blatantly unacceptable, a large part of the ordinance is regulating minutia, and tremendous amounts are dedicated to restricting things that, frankly, are nobody's business. I understand that planning and zoning are a needed component in a civil society, but when you're dealing with farms, land, property, and homes that are ancestral and will continue to be handed down for further generations, there are lines that you should be very wary of crossing when making rules. A family that has owned a homestead for decades and plans to continue the legacy will not take kindly to overreach. Now, since I'm not a fan of people complaining without solutions, I'd like to suggest a volunteer citizen advisory board that could meet with staff and board members to review and suggest changes to proposed regulations and ordinances. And not to disparage the staff of the planning department, but they are not accountable to the voters and aren't necessarily concerned with how regulations and infringements on private property rights are going to affect elections. You guys are going to be the ones that get your feet held to the fire when a consultant slips something in there that didn't get read. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kahn. Tim Robertson. Please state your name and address, sir.
Name's Tim Robertson, live at 104 Wilson Street in Eden, North Carolina. Here to talk about a few things on here, just questions and concerns. First off, wanted to say good evening, and it's already been echoed a couple of times, but thank y'all for everything that y'all been doing. I know it's hard work, and y'all have been doing a great job. My concern is about the regulation 6208. I don't know if many people know me in here. My family owns and operates the Eden Drive-In movie theater. And we have looked at doing a few other things, possibly expansion, possibly even open another drive-in on another part of the county. With the regulations here, my first question is the Eden Drive-In going to be grandfathered in to where we don't have to worry about some of these regulations? Then the concerns come with the regulations. Talking about no part of the assembly area projection screen can be located more than 300 foot. Given the way land is now, that's going to be a difficult thing to do. You have to worry about how the land is laid out for a drive-in or any outdoor venue that you want to bring in concerts or anything like that. So you have to worry about where the staging is set up, the layout of the land, so that way you can get the maximum amount of cars in, stuff like that. So when you do that, some of the wording in this is going to really restrict where you can set certain things up, and you're not going to be able to use the land to the optimum ability that you need. One of the big ones on here, the image on the projection screen cannot be visible from adjoining property or from roads. That's just about impossible. Some of the wording on that as well. We have a road that runs right beside the drive-in. You can see it from there. We have property right behind us that they sit out on their back porch and watch movies. So it's going to be really hard to do some of this stuff. The lighting, I completely understand the lighting part. The audio amplification, that's usually never an issue until recently. We've been able to have some concerts during the pandemic that has been just absolutely amazing. We've brought in live Christian concerts, and they have been a little bit loud. But so I understand some of that, but there needs to be some workaround, and we've tried to abide by the policies as far as the time frame. But that pretty much covers everything that I need to talk about on that. Once again, thank you for your consideration and talking to me, and thank you for all the hard work y'all been doing. Y'all really have done tremendous work here recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Appreciate you being here tonight. Gary Williams, is that right? Guy Williams. Please give us your name and address, sir.
689 Hudson Road, Bethany. I want to thank you for the forum here to be able to speak. I'm just an average fella, you know. I'm a local. I was born here up the road and live right up the road, and I'm down here tonight. And I speak for a lot of people. I'm not making jest, but the Spit and Whittle Club, there's where you hear what's going on and what people think and how they feel. I appreciate y'all taking time and going and not voting on that tonight. I only ask if you'll read everything that's in there and understand it and remember the Constitution, the individual right of every person, no matter who they are. We've heard landowners, we've heard developers. Flexibility was mentioned in landowners, but in developers, but no flexibility in the landowners. So, you know, just remember the individual person, you know, when you make decisions, because it affects everybody down the road, not just us now, but everybody. And it's really important. I know y'all have got an important job. You're intelligent men, or you wouldn't be where you're at, you know. And I'm not flattering, it's just the truth. Remember the average fellow like myself works, you know, well, I'm retired now, did work, pay taxes, you know, just wants to live and abide the law and do. If I want to hunt, okay. If I don't, okay. If I want to go shoot, you know, have a place to shoot. If a man wants to, whatever he wants to do on his property, he ought to have the right, as long as it doesn't harm anybody. If a person wants to build a house, okay, he'll be able to build a house. A land developer, you know, I believe you could use some of the berms that they put up in front of these developers just for a backstop for shooting range right there. You know, farmland that I grew up and pulled the bike in, I see houses, mansions in them now. No one ever thinks about the water table when that's done. I've heard conservation. Well, you know, the water table is part of the conservation. But I want to thank y'all for letting me talk, and I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate you being here tonight as well. Jordan Stein.
Hello, I'm Jordan Stein. I'm the Director of Communications for Gun Owners of America.
Address?
And 1079 Highway 57 in Milton. I represent GOA's members and activists in Rockingham County. You know, after this past year, we've had record-breaking gun sales, and all gun owners, new and old, need the opportunity to exercise their right to keep and bear arms, including being able to safely and responsibly shoot and train with firearms on their own property. So GOA just urges you to continue to stand for the rights of gun owners and property owners. You know, we've been blessed to enjoy protection of these rights for centuries since our founding, and especially the right to keep and bear arms, the right of self-defense, which ultimately comes from God. So just wanted to encourage y'all to stand firm for the Second Amendment and always keep that in the front of your mind when you're governing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight, Mr. Stein. And Raymond Eaton. Give us your name and address, sir, please.
My name is Raymond Eaton. I live at 1050 Grooms Road in Reedsville. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I thank you for the opportunity to speak. When I first saw this, with the ordinance with all the infringement on gun rights and so forth, I knew immediately that you fellows didn't stand for that. And whoever came up with this, I obviously did not know Rockingham County, or they did not know you. And I think this has roots way outside of Rockingham County. In 1992, in Rio de Janeiro, the United Nations held their Earth Summit. And we signed on to it, and they included in it something called Agenda 21. And it's mainly aimed at climate issues, okay? Well, one of the things that gets in the way of what international groups like to do, like the United Nations, is our property rights in the United States. And I don't know where this came from. I know you have seen things, whether you knew or not where it came from, that they had their hand in it. It's a real thing. I've got publications going all the way back to the early 90s that they made for school children. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching IB history of the 20th century, wars and dictators, and I like to pride myself on keeping aware of what's going on in the world. They've since changed the name of this thing from Agenda 21 to Agenda 2030. And if you've listened to some of the statements that the president has made over the past few weeks, he wants to see the federal government own 30% of the land in the entire United States over a period of time, and up to 50%. They want to control as much private property as possible. And one thing that if they can control your gun rights on your property, that's a big step in that direction. And I know you fellows, you gentlemen were not for this. You were, kind of surprised by it. But I'd like for you to just make you aware of it. I sent you all an e-book, a copy of this. A man named Tom DeWeese with the American Policy Center is in Northern Virginia, and he would be glad to come and talk to us. I've talked to him. I've talked to Diane about it. But if you look out west, the BLM, stuff they're trying to do with ranchers and so forth, it's all part of the same thing. And they use it in the name of climate, but it's really about political control of everything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Appreciate you being here tonight. Mr. Fink, you crossed your name out. Very good, thank you. And with that, we've got Charles Kahn. He's next. Very good, thank you, Mr. Kahn. Thank you for being willing to participate. Ellen Fulton. Please give us your name and address, ma'am.
I'm Ellen Fulton. I'm at 315 Hopper Road here in Mayodan. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I ain't never spoken in front of a crowd, but I came to North Carolina back in 2020. I came here, and honestly, I've learned my gun rights and ownership over the last few years. I've gotten my concealed carry and really gotten into my family history of gun ownership and military and all of this stuff. And I've found out that I've had generations after generations that have fought for our Constitution. And it's really hit my heart that any infringement on our rights is taken away from our Constitution. Right. Okay? And I just want you guys to be mindful that everything counts. Every line of documents counts. And if it's not read and gone through, things can be snuck in that we don't want or we don't need as in our county. So I urge you to just look at everything and compare it to what is in the Constitution, and to make sure that our Constitution is upheld. Because if we don't, little by little, every little thing gets rid of our Constitution. Every aspect counts. And I just urge you, and I'm thanking God that you guys have reconsidered and started looking at this document, because when I was given some of the information for this document, I was appalled. And I said, you know what, I've never went to a meeting like this, and I've never spoke. But I'm here as a citizen of Rockingham County, and I'm wanting to put my tail on the line
That's right.
to say we've got to stand up for our Constitution.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fulton, for that powerful statement. And everyone, thank you for being involved. We want you to be involved in your government. Jim Johnston.
Jim Johnson.
He's left. Very good. Thank you. And Jimmy Smith.
Smith.
Please give us your name and address, sir.
Hey, Jimmy.
Jimmy Smith, 163 Manley Farm Road in Reedsville. Thank you for the opportunity. I will say today, I just found out about this UDO meeting this evening. I had very little time to prepare any notes to speak with, so I'm just kind of coming off the hip with some points I wanted to hopefully bring to your attention. I moved here as a retired veteran, career Army veteran, 5 years ago. I made Rockingham County my selection for my retirement home. I bought a home with acreage, and my concern is with this acreage, I want to pass it down to my grandchildren. So as a veteran, like most veterans, I feel I have stock in this country. And in doing so, I'm very concerned about constitutional rights, and particularly personal property rights. One gentleman here spoke about UN Agenda 2030, which he's already touched on some of the things I was wanting to bring up about the United Nations plan to erode personal property rights globally. And some of the things here that through planning that's been worked in that I have never heard mentioned here is a smart growth initiative. If you track this back, this goes back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and also the local Governments for Sustainability organization. So I would ask, when you're sitting here reviewing this document and your planners go to meetings or you go to meetings, what is the mission statement of these organizations that are putting on these planning meetings or seminars? What's their mission statement? Where does their funding come from? I'd ask you to dig a little deeper and find out what's the influence behind these organizations with the planning. And I would ask you to, here again, as a, it's easy to do away with personal property rights. We see it happening in other parts of this country through regulatory guidance. And I would ask you to prevent from doing that, as others have said. I would ask you to personally review this document from cover to cover, personally, before you vote on it. Thank you.
Jimmy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. We appreciate that. And that's all we have signed up to speak tonight. And I would like to reiterate what Commissioner Pirtle had said earlier, that we are directing our IT folks. There will be a link on our website. We encourage you to continue to read this document, offer comments, offer suggestions, and I'm going to request that you be specific. We've had several folks tonight cite page number, article number with specific guidance. That's very helpful. So be as specific as you can in your comments, and that will help guide your leadership here in the county as to what we're going to do. With that, we will entertain a motion to continue.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and if I could comment ahead of that, I think we can all see the value of a public hearing process. Many pieces of information brought to this board tonight. It would have been nice to have them earlier, but nevertheless, the process did work, and we got to hear what people said. I particularly approve Mr. Tim Robertson and Mr. Williams from Bethany. I appreciated your comments. I think they're very valid about water tables and, gosh, a historic icon of North Carolina there in the Eden Theater. So certain things do need to be protected. I also want to point out that, as was mentioned, I think, somewhere in a conversation, that this document is not engraved in stone. It was not meant to be, and there is an ongoing need to amend it as time passes on and situations change. And through that time, there's a continual need for public input. on guidelines for regulations, and particularly in regards to developmental guidelines. So I would encourage not only you, but anyone listening to this and all citizens to take part in that process and let us know. Somebody was nice enough to call us intelligent. There may be some debate about that particular issue, but nothing replaces multiple sets of eyes examining a document. And I think the suggestions about public committees. And with that said, I particularly want to recognize not only Mr. Rakestraw, but his entire committee, who has worked diligently, hard and long. And I warn you folks, I'm taking your names, and when we have other committees that pop up, you might get a call to see whether you're interested in volunteering to be part of that. Mr. Chair, I motion that this board recess this portion of the hearing until August 16th, 2021, and we not consider a vote on this until that time. That will be here in the Governmental Center at 6:30 p.m. on the 16th of August.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Very good. We are in recess on this item, again, until the 16th of August. And again, until then, please offer your comments and such through the website. I think we will. Let's take a recess for 5 minutes, and then we'll convene here at about 45. That's 7:45. All righty, folks, we're back in session. Sorry that ran over a little bit, but that's okay. Thank you, those who are still here. Next item on our agenda is Lance Metzler, County Manager, our disengagement resolution. Lance?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, Board of Commissioners. As you know, Cardinal Innovations are LME MCO, and for the public, the LME MCO stands for Local Management Entity Managed Care Organization. The LME MCOs are to provide access to behavioral health, substance abuse treatment, intellectual development delay services, placements of those who need to be placed in facilities, and other services. The county's had some concerns and issues of Cardinal's performance in the past, and they are currently merging with Via Health, which gives the county an option to either stay with Via or disengage to align with another LME MCO. A committee consisting of 2 of our commissioners representing the Health and Human Services Board, HELP Incorporated, representatives from law enforcement across the county, adult probations, clerk of the court, DSS, public health, and others interviewed partners, Via Health, and Sandhills Center on June 18th. And the consensus was to align with Sandhills Center, as they seemed a like fit for Rockingham County. Subsequently, Felissa, Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Pearl, and I met with Sandhills on July 6th to see if we would be a good fit for them, as well as they see us to be a good fit for Sandhills. There were a lot of documents and processes that we've discussed. The meeting went well with Sandhills, and I'm recommending that the commissioners all support the resolution to disengage with Cardinal Innovations and to align with Sandhills. And before that, I had talked to Commissioner Pirtle. He thought it'd be a good idea that I reach out to the other the county managers in the catchment area. And out of 9, I got responses back from 7. You see 6 on your list, but there was another one that I received yesterday, and that was from Lee County, and all of them were very favorable with their experiences with Sandhills, which is kind of a different experience than what we've had in the past. So I'd ask you all approve the resolution to disengage from Cardinal Innovations and to align with Sandhills Center.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Felissa, do you need to add anything to that, or would you like to?
Yes, sir. I'm here for questions.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, do you have any questions?
No, but I do want to make a comment because many of you have never heard of LME MCO, but it's a big deal. I'm going to abbreviate what the county manager said. This is the organization that subsidizes mental health care for our citizens. So it's a big deal, and obviously our social services and our health department are heavily involved in it. So I want to give you some assurance that not just Commissioner Pirtle and I, but also the county manager and Felissa and her team have looked at this very closely. We have available comparison sheets. And we were really only looking at Via and Sandhill. And I tried to be as objective as I can because I know a lot of members on both boards, but particularly Via. And I think I can safely say, you guys have been able to look at the number, there is not a significant difference in the monetary viability of these two LMEs in comparison. They're reasonable. We've had very positive comments about both. And for me, and I'm also very comfortable that this county, whether we go with Via or Sandhills, is going to be represented with at least a single seat on the board, which is real important when we're trying to get specialized care for anybody. And Felissa can tell you stories, some of them horror stories about the links we have to go to do that. So if you have questions, I think they're very pertinent, and we'll do our best to answer it. Lance has worked hard to collect data. I serve on the Cardinal Board, and I really think I have no bias, but in the interest of clarity and transparency, I want you to know I serve on the Cardinal Board, as does Mr. Keith Duncan. So we're fortunate to have representatives there. That said, one more item you need to know. There's a process called transformation that is going to occur, according to the state Health and Human Services folks, in a sequential order starting in August. Is that right, Felissa? But it's starting soon. And what that's going to include is the addition of physical health to the already existing mental health charge that these LME MCOs have. And of course, we're very interested in how that's going to impact us. And I want to publicly commend Commissioner Pirtle, because he's worked very diligently for the last 3 years in particular, trying to expand mental health coverage for all of our citizens. And we still need more stuff. We need some facilities within the county, and we're trying to get those. So I just wanted to add as much as I could and solicit comment from anybody that had a question, because many of you probably never heard of an LME MCO, but it has a definite impact on your life in Rockingham County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Commissioner Travis?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of joining Sandhills because, as you know, the county has opioid problem, addiction problems, and it's been one of my advocates for the last 5 or 6 years. And I've been on Cardinal's case for years, and I've been trying my best to get a detox facility here in Rockingham County. I hope Felicia will continue to push for that. I really look forward to, I guess, the commissioners actually having a meeting with Sandhill so we can, all of us can address our concerns about our mental health problems in Rockingham County. So I'm in favor of joining this Sandhill.
Thank you. Commissioner Burley, anyone else have comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say that I appreciate the manager and Ms. Farrell and all the folks that were part of this decision, and it wasn't taken lightly. There was, I think everybody did their due diligence, and at the end of the day, I'm comfortable with the decision of disengaging, with the disengagement resolution. And with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to proceed with the disengagement resolution as presented by the county manager.
And I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. We have an approved disengagement resolution. New business, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. With that, I found out later on.
Can I interrupt? I just wanted to give anybody that had a question about this an opportunity to say so. Ricky, I'm talking to you.
He's busy.
All right, we'll move ahead.
So in the new business, we have a timeline and disengagement plan. That after we sent out the agenda, I realized that and this is all new to us, kind of like the COVID, so I found out that we had to have a disengagement plan and a timeline to go with this resolution. So it's in your packet, or it was sent to you. The disengagement plan basically lays out the purpose, the background, why we're deciding to disengage, a timeline, the process of disengaging, next steps, and the authority to allow a disengagement. The timeline you have is a target timeline. It's not set in stone, as there are a lot of moving targets with this process. So I would ask that you all consider approving the disengagement plan and the timeline.
This is not going to happen instantly, but I move that we approve the timeline as presented to us.
A second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Plan.
And then guess what? You got amendment.
All right, so wait a minute,
We need both the disengagement plan and the timeline.
I move for both. If it needs to be restated for public information, do so.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Any further new business, Mr. Manager? Very good, thank you. With that, we'll move to commissioner comments, and we'll start with Commissioner Travis as normal.
I just want to tell everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate everybody sticking around. It's been a fairly long meeting tonight, but I really appreciate the citizen engagement, especially about issues that come before us. Most of us have our own different professions, so it's really not any way we can know everything about everything. And I just really appreciate all the phone calls that I've gotten and the emails. And I really found out that a lot of people in Rockingham County are experts at a lot of things. And I really appreciate the fact that they reach out to me. And I want them all to know, my number's on the website, my number's everywhere. I'm more than happy to speak to anybody that calls or emails me. And I try my best to answer every email. So if you got a concern, or if it don't have to be about UDO, anything, we're up here as a service to you, not the other way around. So if you need anything from the commissioners, we are here to help you to get through the process of permitting, or if you need help at mental health, or you need a foster child, or we can help with that. We are at the service of you, because you put us up here to help you out, because, we all can't know everything about everything, even though some people in this county think they can, but it's okay. It's all right. I love every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Travis. Commissioner Pirtle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, it was nice to see a room full of citizens from Rockingham County engaged in their government, because that's exactly what it is. It's your government. We work for you. And when an issue comes up, one of the things we've talked about is how we can engage our citizens even more. And, we are utilizing our PEG channel, Lance, and we've upgraded our facility in here to better capture the video, and we're putting that on the website, and I think it's on YouTube, and it's playing. You can access it from our website. So we're taking the necessary steps, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's up to the citizens and putting forth the effort to find out what's going on in your government and in your communities. And so I appreciate seeing some new faces here today. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I also want to recognize Dr. Mabel Scott. I think I passed her in the hallway today, and it's her last day tomorrow. She's leaving us. I think she's retiring, and so I wish her well. She served Rockingham County for quite some time, and has been a benefit to the citizens of this community, and always a smile on her face. I'm going to miss her praying. She had the best prayers that we've ever opened up with sometime, but she's just a sincere person, a sincere face that we see around the governmental center from time to time. So wish her the best in her future endeavors. With that, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Commissioner Pirtle. Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah, first I'd like to recognize Paula Rakestraw. She's still here with us from the Rockingham County School Board, and Mrs. Wright from our Board of Elections was here earlier, as was Sheriff Page, and I see we have the chair and vice chair of our local Republican Party represented. We appreciate all of you being here, and we even have a representative from the big town of Madison, North Carolina, now serving as a councilman, and I understand a future candidate to stay in that position. So glad to see you here. Thank you so much. I'd like to mention, I guess I'm addressing the rest of you guys, but this UDO process that we went through in public hearing tonight made me feel good about this board as a whole recognizing a priority on fulfilling the desires and the needs of the citizens of this county. We always listen. I'd like to think we always listen, or at least one of us is listening, somebody's listening. We don't always have the ability to accommodate every single request. There are just too many individuals with individual priorities. But I'm proud to be part of this board that does recognize the needs of the citizens of Rockingham County. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the concerned folks tonight and those who have tuned in at home. In addition to elected officials that we had tonight, we do have a lot of folks who are very interested in their government. They're interested and they get involved, and we appreciate it. Stay involved. This is, if we all noticed one theme tonight from every commissioner here, this is your government. This is your county. So remember that. Stay involved, and we're here for you. Again, thank you, Dr. Mabel Scott, for your service to the county and community. We'll miss you and wish you well in your retirement. With that being said, we also had Phil Honeycutt here, who is a City of Eden representative, and the Eden City Manager, John Mendenhall, earlier. So we appreciate them being in the house. With that being said, again, let me get my list out. Our next meeting will be at Eden City Hall on August 2nd at 6:30. So that's August 2nd at 6:30 at Eden City Hall. And with that, we will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.